Hello, how are you doing? I'm sure many of you will have noticed that I like to follow a number of different book awards, and very excitingly, just today on July 21st, a brand new book award has just been announced and a brand new book award list. So this is the Waterstones Debut Fiction Prize, and this is the very first year that they're running it, and they have just announced a shortlist of 6 novels which will be up in contention for a £5,000 award, which will go to the author that is announced as the winner on August 25th. And this is very special, I think, especially because the books chosen for this were by a number of booksellers. 400 different booksellers decided on this shortlist of 6 books that were chosen from 160 debut novels that were up in contention for this award. And so yeah, it's very special, I think, because booksellers are so passionate about what they're reading, and obviously give lots of personal recommendations to customers in store. So I love that personal interaction, but also I think there's something very special about reading a debut novel and debut fiction to discover this brand new voice that introduces you to a whole individual perspective and individual worlds that we've not read about before, and uses a style that is particular to that author's voice. I think there's something so wonderful about that. I've always really enjoyed reading debut fiction, and a couple of years ago I had the great privilege of being a judge on the Costa Book Awards in the debut fiction category, and that was a wonderful experience. And very sadly, it was just announced that the Costa Book Awards, after 50 years, is coming to an end. So I think it's really lovely that this award has come in to fill in that space a little bit, and yeah, that these books have been chosen by booksellers. And also I have a personal affection for Waterstones, since when I first moved to London over 20 years ago, the bookshop that I loved going to the most was Waterstones in Piccadilly Circus, their flagship shop, which is over 6 floors high. It has so many different books in it. It was just this wonderful world of books, and probably the biggest bookshop that I had ever been in my life. And so I would just go in there quite a lot to just browse and enjoy. And I mean, Waterstones haven't paid me or sponsored me to do this video. I'm just talking about my own personal connection with the bookshop, and why I think it's so wonderful that there's a book prize that's chosen by booksellers. So these are the 6 novels which are up for this year's award. So I just want to go through and talk about each of these books and any thoughts or feelings I have about them, but also to find out from you if you've read any of these books, if you would recommend them, or if you're interested in following this prize now. Yeah, that'd be wonderful to hear about below. And I've only read one of these novels so far, but there's over a month before the winner is finally announced. So hopefully I'll be able to read some, if not all of them, before that happens. So first off, I'm going to talk about the one that I've read, which is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. And this novel is quite a wild experience. It begins with the premise of a deadly virus from ancient times, which has been sort of accidentally uncovered and then unleashed back out into the world, and it causes chaos. And you follow the progress of human civilization over a number of centuries, and particular characters and their stories of how this affects them, how society changes over that time, the process of how people grieve for who is lost, how they memorialize people that are lost, and where they're going in the future. So it kind of functions like a book of short stories, and some of the sections are more realistic, some of them are kind of more sci-fi. There's one section with a talking pig and an audio animatronic dog, and but yeah, I found it really gripping and moving following this story. And there's a number of connections between the characters going between the different chapters, so they do connect up in that way. But it's a really beautiful and powerful book that I was just completely gripped by. Also, to mention how beautiful the inside cover of this UK edition of the novel is, of this individual walking away in the snow. A novel I've heard really great things about and that I've been meaning to get to is Vagabonds! By Eloghosa Asunde, and this is a novel set in Lagos in Nigeria and mainly follows a number of different characters, many of whom are queer or displaced individuals, and how they are forced to live on the shadows and in the fringes of society because they are condemned and persecuted by the government and forces in power. So following their different stories, some of them are more like supernatural in tone or draw upon different mythologies, but also the creativity and ingenuity that these individuals necessarily have to use in order to survive. And I've heard it's quite like a wild collection, and so they are sort of short stories, but then they kind of link up, like especially in terms of themes. And so it's really interesting how these different novel forms utilize this almost forms of short stories to bring a tale together in a novel form. And I think that's really exciting, and I'm just so eager to read this. Also, I've heard that the audiobook of this is really excellent, so that would be a good alternative if you're looking to read this book. Also, look at this great author photo. I love this. Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, and this is a novel about a woman in the early 1960s who's a chemist and struggles to work in her field, which is really male dominated, and so that has an impact on her professional life, but also her romantic and personal life. And it follows her story as she unexpectedly becomes this television cooking star, and she uses a style of cooking which invokes the science and chemistry behind cooking, and becomes an unexpected hit, and finds that she's able to exert this unexpected influence upon women in the country and in America at that time. And so this is a novel I hadn't really heard about before, but which I think sounds so good. And I love the cover design of this, of the different crosses, but also it's fun how there are different quotes on this book from a number of different authors, including Nigella Lawson, who says, "I'm devastated to have finished it," and seems like a very apt choice to choose to give a blurb for this book, because she is a chef and a very intelligent person. And but also Nigella Lawson, she was the first person that I saw recommending Maggie Shipstead's novel Great Circle, and lo and behold, Maggie Shipstead also gives a quote for this book, where she says, "It's the world versus Elizabeth Zott," who's the chemist, the protagonist of this novel, "an extraordinary woman determined to live on her own terms, and I had no trouble choosing a side, page-turning and highly satisfying." And I just love the little connection of how I was first recommended Maggie Shipstead's writing by Nigella Lawson, and then they're both recommending this book. So I think it's a book that I'm really going to enjoy. Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow, and this is a novel about multiple generations of Black American women in the American South, and all centering around a salon that they work in and have a number of interactions with, and looking at their family story across different generations, and the connections between women in this family. And another book that I've heard some really good things about, then some other like quite mixed reviews of this. So I'm quite keen to read this, but also a bit like cautious going into it. But also look at the inside covers of this, which are really beautiful. Trespass by Louise Kennedy, and someone was just recommending this book to me recently, so I'm so glad to read it now and eager to get to to it. It's the story of a woman living in Northern Ireland and how her personal life, but also her community and country, are affected by the troubles in Northern Ireland, and especially because she is a teacher, and so she sees how the language surrounding this conflict is really internalized by the students that she teaches, and so how it affects their lives as well as her own. So yeah, it's meant to be quite a striking and powerful story. And finally, there is The Rabbit Hutch by Tess Gunty, and this is a novel which has only just been released here in the UK, but I've heard really great things about. I'm very excited to read it. So The Rabbit Hutch refers to the name of a low-income housing complex in a depressed area of Indiana, and about a number of different individuals that inhabit this housing complex, but especially about a very particular and different woman that lives there, who's had a very difficult past, and who spends her days reading Dante and dreaming about becoming a female mystic. But over the course of one very hot summer, a very dramatic and tragic event occurs, which changes both her life and the other people in this housing complex. So it follows that story, and it sounds like a very gripping and intriguing story. So yeah, very excited to read this. So that's the shortlist for this brand new book award. And I'd like I said, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books, or if you're keen on reading any of them now, and if you're keen on following this prize with me, let me know about that in the comments below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. But whatever the case, I hope you're reading good things and having a good day, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye bye.